Hi, everybody, and welcome to Your Stake, Your Story, a video series focused on highlighting best practices in values-based investing. Today, I'm really excited to have Angela Barbash on with me. Angela was one of the first people that I met in this space when I was first getting started, so really love to be connecting with you again. And Angela is a mom anthropologist, which we'll have to talk about because my dad's an archaeologist, entrepreneur, and unabashed challenger of the status quo. I had to include that. I love that part of the bio. She's dedicated more than 20 years in service as an investment advisor in the Metro Detroit region, including founding ReValue as a values-driven investment firm in 2013. She was one of the first to obtain the Chartered Socially Responsible Impact Investing Counselor, CSRIC designation in the US. Angela, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me, Gabe.
Very cool. So I always start with the same first question, which can be a big one. But what is your story? What led to you getting into the value space, into the revalue space, and starting the firm in 2013?
Thank you for asking that. And sometimes I have to really take a moment to go all the way back to reflect on like how did I get here. I think that if ReValue had existed as a firm as an option when I first got licensed in 2003, I would have ended up here. If I had known that the RIA, the Registered Investment Advisor, kind of model existed, or that one could just start an RIA and had some navigational help on how to do that, then I might have started that right out of the gate in 2003 as well. But neither of those things were true. Could not find anything like this, and did not know what an RIA was back then. So what I did was I set an intention to find the most impactful values driven firm that I could find to go work at. And that landed me at Edward Jones. And I was there for 5 years and became dissatisfied with kind of what I saw on the inside, and an incongruency between internal actions and external messaging, and decided to leave and go into the independent broker dealer world and try to find a fit there. But really became restless there, especially post 2008, when Occupy Wall Street was happening on one end of the spectrum and the Tea Party movement was happening on the other end of the spectrum. And what all those people had in common, who were all in my office behind closed doors, sharing all their frustrations about the world and all their hopes and dreams for what it could be in the future, what they all had in common is what we would call today markers of the just transition movement, moving from the extractive economy to the regenerative economy. While they all had maybe differing opinions about about government's role in that, and corporations' role in that, and the finance industry and all that, they all recognize that resiliency, moving assets out of the public markets and into the private community markets, at least a portion of the assets, would be valuable and helpful. Investing in things like solar and food systems, and all of these kind of systems that have broken down over the years, investing into them would be beneficial to all of us. So they all had shared values. And so then in that period post '08, until I ended up starting ReValue in 2013, and that 5 year period was a lot of discovery of trying to figure out, is there a firm out there that does this? Is there, how do you help people move capital off of public markets? What are impact metrics? What is all of this? And how do you help investors navigate this? And it was, in those early days, it was hunting and pecking for other people that were talking kind of the same language that I was. And I eventually did find those people. It started at Slow Money in San Francisco in 2011, and then various conferences, SOCAP conferences, and other kind of opportunities like that, that brought people together around these topics, that then led to enough validation that I knew starting a firm was really the next move. So that's sort of how I got to that place. This is like the Cliff Notes version. How I got to startup.
Course. Well, and then so what was the founding vision of ReValue, and also how's that evolved to today over the last 10 years?
Kind of wild. The founding vision was an employee-owned firm that would help people align their finances with their values, specifically to help them do that alignment in the public markets, but help them divest into the community impact markets. That was the original vision, and 10 years later, that's what we're doing. So kind of wild that that's
Yeah.
what it turned into. And we're now, as of next Wednesday, we're going to be a team of 8. We've got our
All
team
right.
member number 8 joining us. We're all employee owners of the company, and we are serving, 90% of the investors that came to us over the last 3 years had an intention to divest small amount of their portfolio, the entire portfolio, anywhere in between, into impact investments. And these are accredited high net worth investors, institutional investors, and non-accredited, like wealth builder investors that are, excited about participating in their local economy, beyond just consumer decisions. And so we really are, it's a cross-class environment. We have almost 200 people that are currently in our client community, with many more thousands that we've educated over the last 10 years. And it's just, it's awesome and wild and keeps us inspired and on our toes every single day.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I have to ask you questions, follow-ups about those, and they're honestly the questions that you raised, which is how do you help move people off of private markets, and how do you help people navigate that? Because my guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is people don't come in telling you, "Hey, I want to do this." Maybe they do. I think they generally have some idea in mind of how they want their money to be operating in the world, and then you can help them figure out what that actually specifically means in practice. But that'd be
Mhm,
great to hear what those conversations look like, what people come in looking for, and then how you help them navigate that process.
mhm. Yeah. So I would say that folks generally come in to our community on one of two tracks. Either they know what divestment and reinvestment into regenerative finance and into the local economy, or kind of impact oriented communities. They know what that is. They've
Hmm.
been exposed to that somewhere else, resource generation network, or
Hmm.
some other kind of community has already exposed them to that idea. And now they came specifically because we
Mm.
have that expertise,
Hmm.
or they came having very real personal finance questions and needs, knowing that they wanted to work with someone that was values aligned. And when we asked them the question, hey, are you interested in divestment? They're like, wait, I can do that.
Yeah.
And it's like an epiphany for them.
Yeah.
So it's the first time they've ever crossed that's ever crossed their awareness. And so regardless of which track people come in on, the first step is pretty much the same, which is we need to assess their their whole risk tolerance situation, not just their financial ability to take risk, but their emotional risk
Hmm.
tolerance. We need to assess that whole situation and build out an investment policy statement that identifies like what percentage of the overall portfolio is this appropriate for these kinds of investments, as a starting point. Or even sometimes we build the IPS as a destination point. Like, this is what we want it to look like in 5 years. So it's going to take us some time to get there.
Hmm.
But for those people where this is the first time they've ever heard of it, or they barely know anything about it, then it's usually a very small kind of starter, dip your toes in the water allocation. And the majority of the work we're doing with them is in the public markets. And so after that IPS development, then it's education. It's a learning journey. And everybody, I don't care how much wealth somebody has, how many generations they've been building wealth or haven't been, their wealth and income is 100% not a barometer for knowledge and
Mm,
savviness about investing. We see it all the time. People that come in that are like first gen immigrant, first gen Americans, children of immigrants, they've got sometimes a lot of knowledge about how capital works and operates in the private sector because their family
mhm,
is a history of business ownership. Or conversely, we get multi-generational inheritors that come in and their family completely segregated
mhm,
finance from them. They don't even have basic financial planning and management knowledge, let alone investment knowledge.
mhm.
So you got to strip all of those assumptions away about what people know or what they don't know, and just start from ground zero, with kind of an assessment and a learning journey, and then just taking step by step by step after that. Yeah, I'm curious to go wherever you want to out of here.
Yeah, well, that covers exactly the first step in the process, and then someone expresses interest, and says, "Yeah," they give you a yes. That sounds really interesting. I do want to divest. I do want to focus more on, um, maybe investing in the community or solar or just
Mhm.
private markets in general. What do you then do from there, and what are some of the
Mm.
challenges that you face?
Yeah, so in that IPS development, part of the process, there's the risk tolerance and asset allocation, but there's also targeting the impacts that they want to have, so
Mhm,
that they can take this world of thousands, tens of thousands of offerings that exist in the private world around us, that are not easy to wrap our arms around, because it's not like the New York Stock Exchange where we can just go on and search the ticker.
mhm,
These opportunities will come in so many different ways and forms, and they'll look and feel a different way, that it can be overwhelming. And so the first process is, let's narrow down the scope of what you're looking for.
mhm,
What is the impact? What type of organizations? What's the structure of the investment? Are you looking for debt or equity? So you kind of narrow down this world, to something that is targetable, that you could
mhm,
target. Then from there, there's a partnership that we build with our clients, because that world is so diverse
mhm,
and so unorganized and nascent.
mhm,
We have to do it through partnership, where we have kind of these types of investments that we will proactively look for, which for us is funds, community investment funds, CDFI notes, things like that, that are or pooled investments. We will proactively look for those things, do the due diligence on them, and put them in our data rooms for all of our clients to see.
mhm.
And on the other side, we're asking our clients to be the scouts for what we call direct investments, which is the coffee shop in my backyard, the
Mm,
friend that is a midwife that wants to quit her day job and needs some runway capital to do full-time midwifery services.
mhm,
Um, whatever. It takes so many different forms. So those direct investments, we're training our clients on how to identify them, how to kickstart conversations to even create an opportunity potentially.
wow.
And then they bring it to us, and we'll do kind of a due diligence light process on it. And we'll say, hey, we've looked at everything. We're like your quarterback. We'll look at everything. Here's the red flags we saw. Here's the questions we think you should ask. And if you're going to do this deal, this is what your investment policy statement parameters say would be
Mhm,
appropriate for your portfolio. Or, hey, this doesn't look like a good move for you at all, because you're already at capacity for this type of investment in
mhm,
your portfolio anyway. So it's applying that same kind of investment management philosophy and logic that we use in the public markets, applying it to the private markets, but without the quarterly earnings rodeo that
yeah,
gets run in that market, and without the money and returns trumps all metrics, um, philosophy that often gets adopted, where you're just looking at returns benchmarked against the S&P 500 or whatever. So
mhm.
it's kind of stripping those things out and giving it a more qualitative approach, yeah, in addition to the IPS. That's a lot.
Yeah, well,
I could do this all day.
and so I personally know a number of advisors that do believe in the impact potential of private markets.
Mhm.
They're small, honestly, around your size, actually.
Yeah,
And they are thinking about it. They've been thinking about it for a while, but they have a process and they're getting demand. They think it's really cool, but it just seems overwhelming because it is a lot.
it
What
is.
would you say to an advisor that is interested in this, has clients that are interested,
Mm.
believes in it, but doesn't really know where to start because there's just so much information and so much going on?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I so love that there are other advisors that are like, I'm interested. Whereas 10 years ago, it was like nobody, you couldn't even have a conversation in an advisory context about this.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend is two things. One is that it can be helpful if you're an advisor and you're thinking about incorporating these kinds of services into your practice to start with a beta group of clients that are highly motivated to take action, because and that's really key. If you identify a group of clients that are kind of interested or they're curious but they're not really motivated to take action, you could end up doing a lot of work without
Mm,
them executing on it, and it can feel very dissatisfying and be like, why did I even waste my time? This would, so you can lead down some pretty dark rabbit holes there. So a group of clients could be three, could be four clients, not a large group of clients, but they're highly motivated and committed to taking action. When you do your part, they will do their part.
mhm,
So you could beta test with them, and you could start with one offering, one note, one CDFI, one community investment fund, one direct investment that's like in, say you pick a group of clients that are in Oakland, and you pick an investment that's in Oakland,
mhm,
and you run through the experience with them. That is, I've heard that be successful for several other advisors that wanted to do something, but they wanted to kind of feel it out first. So start with a small group and be completely transparent with that group of clients that this is the first time you've ever been doing this,
mm,
but that you're not alone. You are a member of a community of advisors that are doing this kind of work, that you're in a learning, kind of a peer-to-peer learning environment with them. And so that will hopefully help allay any concerns from the clients that you're like testing things with them that,
mhm,
can make them a little nervous. And then that leads me to my second suggestion, which is be a member of this peer to peer learning environment. Um, there are really cool efforts happening over the last couple of years. I'd say the last 3 years within the advising community, where we are banding together to advance the entire movement together and to advance our individual practices together. And so, one context that that's happening in is the radical planners community, or rad planners as we'll often call it.
mhm,
That's a couple of hundred advisors and advisor adjacent professionals like money coaches, tax advisors, legal professionals that are dedicated to the just transition and the whole regenerative economy movement. And there's shared due diligence happening in
mm,
that community right now. And that can be one way to deal with the lack of capacity that any one solo operation has. Another place where shared due diligence is happening is in the ESG for Impact conference community, which is First Affirmatives community. Their natural investments kind of kickstarted the conversation a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, and there's shared due diligence happening in that space. So these are starter efforts, but they're really have been powerful for people, and there are other communities, the Financial Planning Association, community, Invest for Better community. There's a lot of different spaces. I don't know that any one space is better than another or more suitable than another, but that the overall point is to not do this work alone. It can be very isolating to be
mm.
on this track of um of evolution, practice evolution, by yourself. It can be very isolating.
I could totally imagine. And what if people are interested? where would they be able to learn more about joining one of those communities? Or I guess it's different for each one.
Great question. Yeah. So for the Rad Planners community, that's by invitation only. And so that's like you got to know somebody who knows the community. And then there's a one pager that everyone in the community has access to that that has a description of the community, our mission, who's in it, and instructions to a Google form to submit interest into the community. And that's really just so that we can have a handle on like who's coming in and making sure that they understand what they're coming into. For the ESG for impact and the natural investments like shared due diligence effort, I think really the best way to get plugged in there is to attend the conference, which happens in Colorado in October every year, and that's about 3 to 4 or 500 people that come together, really nerdy. Like you're gonna geek out on some finance, and that's where we got to meet each other for the first time. I will
Mhm.
never forget, Gabe, you coming up next to me at a breakout room. We were getting ready for a session, and you're like, "Hey, I got this thing. I'm looking for beta testers." And I was like, "Maybe, I don't know. That's a great idea,
Yeah.
but good luck to you. I like where you're going with it." It wasn't for a few years that we ended up, taking advantage of your stake, but now it's a core piece of our public market offerings. So yeah, getting to that conference is another good way to plug in. And then these other communities like Invest for Better, Zebras Unite, they all have web presences, so
Mhm.
you can just Google them and get plugged in to those communities.
Wow. Well, I have probably 10 more questions, but we only have 2 more minutes.
I know.
So maybe I'll end with, so you started ReValue in 2013, 10 years ago.
Yes.
You've been following the path. Where do you see things going 10 years from now in 3 sentences or less?
Okay. And as an anthropologist, as a street trained, did not finish my bachelor's degree in anthropology, but very much feel like an anthropologist, I would say that the future, I think, is going to be charted by those who are curious about how much we can solve, like how many problems we can solve. And I think that there's a phrase that we use a lot here at ReValue that encapsulates the challenge ahead of us and the opportunity, which is that we are hospicing the old while midwifing the new.
Mm,
And when you're midwifing, you don't really know what is going to happen. You have to take it minute by minute, in just kind of move through the experience and all of those challenges that will arise in the beauty and kind of magic of that situation at the same time. And I think that that is what we have. That is kind of the perspective we have to adopt as we are moving into the future. Is as curious, in wonder and awe of what humanity can accomplish, but ready to face those barriers and challenges as they come at us, because it's very real and fast that it comes at us. That was not 3 sentences, but I did it in 2 minutes.
that's perfect. Thank you so much again for your time. I gotta have you back on and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too, Gabe. Thanks so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening.